20 minutes before one of the most devastating underground mine collapses in recent history.
We're talking a truly massive scale here.
Right, exactly. Just 20 minutes before that, a small, muddy puddle of water formed near a structural support pillar.
Just a puddle.
Yeah, that was it. Just a puddle where the floor was, normally completely dry. Or think about this. 2 days before a massive conveyor belt fire at a processing plant, a control room operator noticed a temperature gauge running just 2 degrees above normal.
2 degrees is almost nothing.
Right, so they brushed it off as a sensor glitch and just went to lunch. When we think about industrial disasters, you and I naturally focus on the loudest part of the timeline, right? The explosion, the collapse, the catastrophic failure.
Because our brains are hardwired to pay attention to that dramatic climax. It's human nature.
Exactly. But forensic investigators, they operate on a completely different timeline. They know the actual disaster didn't start with a loud noise. It started hours, days, or even weeks earlier with those tiny, almost invisible anomalies.
The dominoes were already falling.
Yeah, people just couldn't hear them yet.
And, by the time the sirens go off and the emergency lights start flashing, the physics of a catastrophe are already in motion. The window for prevention has pretty much slammed shut.
It's too late.
Way too late. At that point, operators are no longer stopping an incident. They are simply managing the casualties and the fallout. The true battleground for industrial safety exists entirely in that quiet, seemingly mundane stretch of time before the alarm ever rings.
And that critical window, that quiet stretch of time, is exactly what we are focusing on today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are exploring a fascinating new framework for how human beings process complex information in high-stakes environments.
Because today, July 22, 2026, EON AI Ventures has unveiled a development preview for a platform they're calling the Mining Situation Room.
Right. And we are looking at their initial press release today, along with a highly detailed development preview that proposes a 30-card visual learning catalog.
And while the context here is strictly the mining industry, the cognitive psychology or the evidence-based methodology they're pioneering to train this kind of situational awareness, it's universally applicable.
Oh, absolutely, whether you're in a hospital, a boardroom, or a control room. So the mission for our deep dive today is to explore how this tool aims to teach personnel to recognize dangerous, irreversible operating conditions before they happen.
And to really understand the incredibly strict evidence-based methodology driving it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at the scope of this proposed catalog, they aren't just, throwing together a few generic safety posters with a hard hat on them.
No, not at all. They're building a highly categorized forensic database.
Yeah. The development preview breaks the entire mining ecosystem down into 3 distinct operational worlds. So you have surface operations, underground operations, and then processing and tailings.
Right. And across those 3 environments, they have curated 30 candidate incident cards. And these cards, they capture major history-making catastrophes alongside the recurring daily hazards that just constantly plague the industry.
Like what kind of hazards specifically?
Well, we are talking about tailings storage failures, for one.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a big one.
Huge. Those can unleash millions of tons of toxic byproduct into surrounding communities. But the catalog also covers underground fire and explosion, sudden ground collapses, inundation.
Which is the sudden, violent flooding of a mine shaft, right?
Exactly. Terrifying stuff.
Yeah.
It also includes mobile equipment interactions, conveyor and crusher hazards, major electrical events, blasting, and loss of vehicle control.
That is a massive, massive scope. To really wrap our heads around how they are approaching these hazards, it helps to look at professional poker.
Oh, poker. Okay, I like this. How so?
Well, when casual players sit at a poker table, they just stare at their own cards, hoping for a good hand.
Right, they're totally focused inward.
Exactly. But a seasoned professional isn't just looking at the cards. They are looking at the subtle tells of their opponents. They notice if a player's breathing rhythm changes slightly, or, if they stack their chips in a peculiar way when they're bluffing.
They're reading the invisible data in the room before a single card is turned over.
Yes. And the mining situation room is applying that exact same concept to heavy industry. It is teaching personnel to read the tells of a shifting rock wall or like an overpressurized pipeline.
What's fascinating here is how the platform acknowledges that a tell looks completely different depending on where you're sitting at the table.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the subtle warning sign that a heavy machinery operator needs to spot on the ground is completely different from the data anomaly a control room supervisor needs to catch on a monitor.
So they see different pieces of the same disaster.
Precisely. The source material outlines that the content within these incident cards is dynamically routed for different work perspectives.
So operators, supervisors, control room personnel, processing teams, they all get different views.
Yes, and geotechnical and tailings engineers, plus safety and emergency response leaders. Each of these roles receives tailored insights. They're taught to recognize the specific precursors that will appear in the unique line of sight during that exact dangerous moment.
Man, translating that dynamic routing to a real-world scenario really highlights the complexity of what they're trying to do.
Oh, it's a massive logistical hurdle.
Because think about it, if an underground inundation is building up, the driller might be experiencing physical vibrations or maybe seeing unexpected moisture on the rock face.
Right, tactile and visual cues.
But meanwhile, the geotechnical engineer halfway across the facility needs to recognize a subtle spike in microseismic data, and the control room needs to notice a drop in the main water pump pressure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tailoring a curriculum to hit all those different perspectives simultaneously is, frankly, a logistical mountain.
You would need a flawless forensic understanding of exactly how past disasters unfolded. Like, you can't just guess what the control room saw 10 minutes before a flood.
No, you absolutely cannot guess. And that requirement for absolute accuracy brings us to the anatomy of these incident cards and the evidence standard backing them.
Let's get into that. What is actually on one of these cards?
Well, when the user opens one of these 30 candidate cards, they are interacting with a dense analytical breakdown of a real historical event. The card maps out the exact equipment involved, the precise environmental conditions of the thing.
For weather, ground conditions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, all of that. Plus the specific warning conditions that manifested, the human factor traps that were present, and the crucial decisions operators made during that critical window.
I mean, building a database with that level of granularity requires an ironclad vetting process. According to the preview, every single card must be grounded in official investigations, regulatory alerts, verified data sets, industry standards, or formal inquiries.
If an event doesn't have an authoritative cited record behind it, it just doesn't make the cut, period.
But what really jumped out at me in the source material is a process they call an adversarial fact check.
Yes. The adversarial fact check is really the cornerstone of their whole methodology. You know how standard peer review usually involves experts checking to see if a claim sounds reasonable or aligns with general consensus?
Yeah, like, does this look right to you?
Right. But an adversarial fact check operates much more like a legal cross-examination. They utilize a dedicated process designed specifically to break the narrative.
Wait, to break it? Like, on purpose?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
If a candidate card claims that an operator had 3 minutes to react to a warning light, the adversarial team will pull the technical schematics of that specific warning system.
Wow.
They'll cross-reference it with the verified timeline of the disaster and actively try to prove that the light actually malfunctioned or was maybe obscured by smoke.
Yeah.
They actively try to disprove the material claims in the numbers.
It is essentially a stress test for historical truth.
And the policy is completely uncompromising. If a historical case or a specific data point fails to survive that adversarial scrutiny, it is either heavily revised until it aligns perfectly with the proven physics of the event, or it is completely stripped from the catalog.
Okay, I am fully on board with stress testing the mechanical data. A broken gear or a failed valve, that is objective physics, right? You can definitively prove that a pipe burst at a specific pressure.
Sure, the mechanical side is cut and dry.
But I want to push back a bit on another element these cards track, which you mentioned earlier, the human factor trap.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Because human psychology is incredibly messy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you objectively prove a psychological trap after a chaotic incident has occurred?
It's very difficult.
Right, like if a massive piece of mining equipment crashes and the operator tragically didn't survive, how does an adversarial fact check handle the reality of human error without simply placing unsupported blame on a worker who isn't there to defend themselves?
That is such a valid concern. Investigating human factors without descending into unsupported blame is honestly one of the hardest challenges in industrial safety.
It seems almost impossible.
Well, traditional training often falls into the trap of hindsight bias, where it is very, very easy to look at a completed disaster and conclude that the operator simply wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, the classic operator error excuse.
Exactly. But the adversarial process approaches human factor traps as system failures, not character flaws. They aren't trying to prove someone was lazy. They're trying to prove that, say, a specific dashboard layout caused cognitive overload.
No, I see. Or maybe like a shift schedule issue.
Exactly. Or that a grueling shift schedule created a biological trap of microsleep. To ensure this focus remains on the system rather than pointing fingers at individuals, EON AI Ventures has instituted an incredibly strict visual policy for how these incidents are depicted.
Yeah, looking at what they explicitly refuse to show, the visual policy is almost jarring in its restraint.
It really is.
There are no victims shown anywhere in the catalog. No bodies, no injuries, and absolutely no gore. They completely refuse to depict panic, and they will not show any identifiable affected people.
They even go as far as to scrub operator branding, meaning you will never see a specific mining company's logo on a piece of wrecked machinery.
And directly addressing my earlier concern, the policy strictly forbids the visual depiction of unsupported blame.
By removing all of those elements, they strip away the emotional noise. The imagery that remains focuses exclusively on the critical variables of the event.
So what does that actually look like?
Well, the visualizations highlight the terrain, the exact equipment configurations, the surrounding infrastructure, the specific warning conditions, and the presence of smoke, dust, water, or containment breaches.
Just the facts, essentially.
Right. The source material notes they include what is termed respectful aftermath. But crucially, the preview emphasizes that these visualizations of historical events are conceptual learning images. They are meticulously designed to teach, not to document the horror of the scene.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If you look at the evolution of true crime storytelling, you see a very similar philosophical divide.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, because you have the gratuitous true crime shows that flash gruesome crime scene photos and lean heavily into the shock value. And you walk away feeling like traumatized, but you haven't actually learned anything about how the crime was solved.
Right, it's just sensationalism.
But on the other end of the spectrum, you have high-end analytical true crime documentaries that never show a single drop of blood. They focus entirely on the timeline, the logistical missteps in the investigation, the psychology of the suspects, and the subtle clues that cracked the case.
It forces your brain to analyze rather than just react.
Exactly. So my question is, does removing the panic and the gore from safety training actually improve cognitive focus, or does it risk sanitizing the event so much that operators lose a healthy sense of fear?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of cognitive science, relying on a healthy sense of fear is actually detrimental to complex problem solving.
Wait, really? Detrimental?
Yes, absolutely. When a person is exposed to shocking, gruesome, or panic-inducing imagery, the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, spikes.
Okay, the fight-or-flight response.
Exactly. And this biological reaction simultaneously suppresses the prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain responsible for logical analysis, working memory, and pattern recognition.
So being scared literally makes you worse at analyzing a situation.
Yes. The goal of the mining situation room is clinical pattern recognition for professionals who must maintain cognitive clarity in a crisis. If an operator's brain is flooded with fear from a graphic training photo, they will just remember the horror of the consequence.
But they won't remember how to stop it.
Right. They need to remember the subtle visual precursor, like the specific way dust behaves around a failing ventilation shaft. By utilizing conceptual learning images rather than documentary photographs, the platform keeps the learner's prefrontal cortex engaged.
It trains the eye to lock onto the precise sequence of falling dominoes, maintaining operational clarity rather than just triggering an emotional stress response.
You nailed it.
This clinical analytical approach sounds incredibly powerful on paper, but, the source material is very transparent about where this product currently stands in its development cycle.
Yeah, we have to be clear about that. Right now, in July 2026, this conceptual catalog is serving as a storefront and a development preview.
It is setting the methodological foundation, but the press release explicitly outlines a long list of features that are not yet operational. It's important we look at the product's future roadmap to really understand the ultimate ambition here.
The development preview is exceptionally careful to manage expectations and avoid making premature claims. The document clearly states that the current preview does not deliver playable EON life simulations.
So no VR right now.
Right. It does not contain a functioning Ask Brainy assistant. There is no EON XR simulator, no course modules, no scored assessments, no oral exams, and no certification process available right now.
And the legal disclaimers are just as robust. The preview makes no claims of regulatory approval, it offers no training credit, and it explicitly warns that this catalog is not an equivalent to or a replacement for an actual mine operator's procedures, equipment manuals, or, any legally required compliance training.
Operating in a safety-critical industry demands that level of caution, frankly.
Absolutely. Some of the learning components on these incident cards might have tags indicating they are coming online, but they are future product layers that won't be activated until the underlying systems are fully established.
However, looking at those future product layers really reveals where this technology is ultimately heading. And the most significant element on that roadmap is the Ask Brainy assistant.
Which the source material describes as the platform's future tacit knowledge layer. Let's break that down because the distinction between explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge is really the crux of this entire project.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah. Explicit knowledge is everything written in the equipment manual. It is the rule that says a valve must not exceed 80 psi or the step-by-step checklist for powering down a crusher.
Yes, the textbook stuff.
Right. But tacit knowledge is the unwritten wisdom. It is the intuition an operator develops only after 20 years on the job.
And the future Ask Brainy assistant is intended to be a cited conversational guide that acts as a bridge to that veteran wisdom.
How does it actually do that, though?
Well, the goal for Ask Brainy is to explain exactly what experienced personnel actually notice in the real world, the subtle environmental shifts that just never make it into a textbook.
Like the puddle of water we talked about at the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's being designed to highlight which warning signs are dangerously easy to normalize and ignore during a busy shift. It will guide operators on what specific questions they need to be asking when a situation feels slightly off.
That's super important.
And perhaps most importantly, it will teach them how to execute a clear, unambiguous handover of a dangerous situation to the next shift or to an emergency response team.
So what does this all mean? Because when you look at EON AI Ventures' broader vision, they rely pretty heavily on terms like work intelligence and the human 2.0 vision.
There's a lot of corporate jargon in there, yes.
Yeah, so for a listener trying to cut through that jargon, it sounds to me like EON is attempting something almost like science fiction.
How so?
They are trying to extract the gut intuition of a 30-year mining veteran, like the feeling that a machine's vibration is just a fraction of a hertz off, or the knowledge that a particular smell in the air always precedes a mechanical failure, and digitize it.
They want to encode decades of unwritten instincts into an artificial intelligence.
Yes, so that a rookie operator can essentially borrow a veteran's gut feelings before they ever step onto a live site.
You are interpreting their work intelligence concept perfectly. The source material explains that EON AI Ventures views work intelligence as the enterprise's missing system of record.
Interesting way to put it.
Right. Traditionally, companies capture financial data and production metrics, but they completely fail to capture how the work is actually accomplished by their best people.
Because it's all locked in the workers' heads.
Exactly. EON wants to capture that tacit execution and turn it into an owned, compounding digital asset. And their background suggests they actually have the infrastructure to attempt this.
Right, they aren't just a startup.
No, the company's built on the leadership of EON Reality, boasting 25 years of immersive learning experience. They already serve over 4,400 institutional customers across more than 80 countries.
They definitely have the global footprint and the immersive technology background. But I have to say, translating a static catalog of incidents into a fully interactive virtual reality training simulator carries massive risks.
Well, undoubtedly.
If a rookie is practicing inside upcoming EON Life or XR experience, and the physics engine of that simulation is even slightly off, the platform could accidentally train that operator to make a fatal mistake in the real world.
This raises an important question regarding how they manage the transition from a conceptual catalog to a playable simulator.
Does the source talk about that?
It explicitly addresses this risk, actually. EON AI Ventures mandates that these future interactive experiences will only be released after they successfully pass rigorous technical, safety, content, and assessment reviews.
So they have to be absolutely perfect.
The simulation physics and the procedural reactions must perfectly mirror reality. Furthermore, while the preview is English first today, it is architected for future localization.
Because mining is obviously a massive global industry.
Exactly. The intended audience spans global mine operators, contractors, training centers, and public sector stakeholders all over the world. ensuring that nuanced safety standards and adversarial fact checks translate accurately across different languages, geological conditions, and regional regulatory frameworks. I mean, it is an incredibly complex hurdle they will have to clear before those simulations go live.
The ambition to map the exact DNA of industrial disasters and build a universal digital language for preventing them is just staggering. As we wrap up our deep dive into the mining situation room today, I want to take a moment to connect this directly back to you, the listener.
Because it really does apply everywhere.
It really does. You might be commuting to an office right now, managing a hospital ward, or overseeing a massive software architecture deployment. You might never set foot near a tailings dam or an underground drill.
But the principles are identical.
Exactly. The core framework we have explored today, the vital importance of mastering tacit knowledge and learning to spot human factor traps before the alarm rings, that applies to every single high-stakes environment.
Absolutely.
Whether you are navigating a volatile corporate merger or coordinating an emergency room triage, the dominoes always start falling before the crash. The ability to filter out the emotional noise, avoid the trap of hindsight blame, and focus clinically on the subtle precursors of a failure is a master skill that transcends the mining industry entirely.
Building on EON AI Ventures' vision of work intelligence, I actually want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Lay it on us.
Right now, the methodology behind the mining situation room is entirely retrospective, right? It uses rigorous adversarial fact checks to map out the exact warning conditions and human factor traps of past historical disasters to train future operators.
Right, looking backward to train forward.
But if this platform successfully digitizes all of that tacit knowledge and perfectly models how complex systems fail, could it eventually evolve?
Evolve into what?
Imagine a future where this work intelligence transitions from a passive training simulator into an active, real-time operational supervisor.
Oh, wow.
If an AI can be taught to perfectly recognize the precursors of every past disaster, could it monitor live data feeds from a facility and halt a completely novel, unprecedented catastrophe in real time, stepping in before human operators even realize a domino has fallen?
Moving from analyzing the past to actively predicting the future, it is a profound concept. Remember, the incident always begins before the alarm, and the goal is to ensure you are reading the subtle tells of the room long before that alarm ever needs to sound. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.
Thanks for joining the conversation.